The head of the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith is calling on the U.S. bishops to have extensive and serene dialogue on the topic of Holy Communion. In a letter addressed to USCCB President Archbishop Jose Gomez last week, the CDF prefect offered guidance to the bishops on their upcoming plans to debate a statement on Eucharistic coherence. He called for robust discussion and unity. A growing number of U.S. bishops have been speaking out recently on whether Catholic politicians who support abortion should be denied Holy Communion. Bishop Thomas Olmsted of the Diocese of Phoenix last week offered his public support to San Francisco Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone. Cordileone's recent pastoral letter says pro-abortion politicians should not present themselves for communion. Bishop Olmsted reiterated that, saying, quote, "It is a false patience and pastoral concern that year after year stays silent or speaks in abstractions, while the slaughter continues with the full endorsement of Catholic politicians under our spiritual care as bishops. Such patience is false because it is bereft of love and truth, and thus unmasks rather a deadly apathy towards one who professes the Catholic faith, but whose public embrace of abortion puts his or her eternal soul at risk of damnation and risks dragging untold numbers into hell by their example." The conversation on pro-abortion politicians and Holy Communion escalated following President Joe Biden's inauguration in January. Biden is the nation's second Catholic president, but has advanced an abortion agenda that directly contradicts the Church's teachings on life. The U.S. bishops are expected to vote this year on whether to issue a statement on Eucharistic coherence. Joining us now on Skype is Bishop Thomas Olmsted of the Diocese of Phoenix. Welcome to the show. You do not mince words in your statement, Bishop. You write, quote, "Woe to us bishops if we do not speak clearly about the grave evil of abortion." What responsibility do you believe U.S. bishops have in speaking up about Catholic politicians who advance abortion, and why issue this statement?
Well, I think we need to speak up, especially about the Eucharist, about being such a great gift from God, and that we have to have a deep, deep reverence in our own hearts for Christ. And if we have any sense that there's actions that are going on that are directly contrary to an appreciation of the Eucharist, that we need to speak up about that. It's the great treasure that we have a church. So we need to be defending that. And then we need to do all we can to help those who may be engaged in that activity to understand why it's wrong and why it's not good for their own souls either.
It seems that you're saying this is not about shaming. This comes down to salvation for souls. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that I have a duty. I think we bishops have a duty to speak as pastors. We're not politicians, we're pastors. And that means the care of souls is our first concern, both the good of souls and then anything that could be a scandal to them or could mislead them about what's true and good and beautiful.
The CDF is guiding U.S. bishops to have serene conversation on this topic and issued a call for unity. What's your reaction to that? And do you take that to mean U.S. bishops should not be publicly speaking out on this?
Well, as I read the statement, it doesn't say that at all. And it seems to affirm the key teaching that was in the letter from Pope Benedict back in about 2004. It encourages us, as we certainly desire to do, to be listening to one another as bishops and conversing with one another, and also listening and being in conversation with those who are not following the Church's teaching. That's part of how fraternal correction or correction from a bishop to one of the laity should take place, I think.
And what's your response to claims that speaking out on this issue is politicizing the Eucharist?
Well, that's not my intention at all. The Eucharist is the great treasure of the Church. And if it's not being respected, if people don't appreciate what it is this great treasure is, we need to help them understand that. That's my duty as a bishop. I think it's our duty as spiritual fathers for those that God's given us to serve.
You mentioned this in your statement, but can you clarify, ending abortion is the preeminent pro-life issue for U.S. Catholic bishops, correct?
Yes, that's something that we talked about, we affirmed as bishops when we met in in Baltimore several years ago, and it's something that's also stated very clearly by Pope Francis when we visited him in Rome. The Second Vatican Council said that abortion is an unspeakable evil. If that's true, how could someone who supports that, who requires others to pay for abortions, how could that not be a very serious sin and an obstacle for being ready to receive Christ appropriately in Holy Communion?
And again, this conversation goes beyond the topic of pro-abortion politicians, doesn't it? It comes down to the need for every Catholic to be aware of their worthiness to receive or not to receive the Eucharist.
Oh, I very much agree. I very much agree. We don't want to single out any one group. We want to help all of our people to appreciate the great gift that is the Eucharist, especially as we come out of this time of COVID. We need to rediscover and have a much deeper awe and wonder at the mystery of the real presence of Christ with us, now in history, especially through the Eucharist.
Your Excellency, what is your message to Catholic politicians who do advance abortion, most notably our President Joe Biden?
Well, Jesus said that in chapter 25 of Matthew's Gospel, whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me. And the least, the most vulnerable, the most innocent is the unborn child. So I would hope that teaching of Jesus that's so clear, and it's a teaching about what will be judged on at the final judgment, I would hope that all of our people would listen to that, and especially our politicians. They can have a great impact for good, seeing that and recognizing it and acting appropriately.
And just finally, Your Excellency, for those viewers who have not read your statement yet, what do you want them to know? What do you want the takeaway to be?
Well, I want them to have a deep love for the Eucharist and realize that we need to be well prepared when we come to receive Holy Communion. We shouldn't take that lightly. We should gladly say just before receiving, Lord, I am not worthy, but say the word and I shall be healed.
Bishop Thomas Olmsted with the Diocese of Phoenix, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Catherine.
And joining us now is Prudence Robertson, Communications Associate for the Susan B. Anthony List. Prudence, welcome back. I know that you are Catholic. A majority of the Susan B. Anthony List's leadership team is Catholic. What action would your pro-life group like to see from the U.S. bishops when it comes to this topic of pro-abortion politicians?
Yes, Catherine, while SBA List isn't officially religiously affiliated, we have both Catholics and Protestants serving in our leadership. And of course, what unites us is our respect for the right to life. And to your question, I think it's wise that bishops follow the example of bishops like Olmsted and Archbishop Cordileone in speaking the truth about abortion. They have rightly said that abortion is the preeminent moral and political issue, and it's so important that leaders are speaking the truth about it. And when leaders in our country fail to bring up that inherent life and the dignity of that life, they're really plunging us deeper into the throwaway culture that we as practicing Catholics are called to combat. You know, the Church's teaching on abortion is never going to change. It's a grave matter, and it will always be. And it's so important that we speak the truth about that. And we also hope that the Vatican will support Catholic bishops in speaking the truth about abortion and advocating for it, even if it means consequences for pro-abortion leaders in our nation who claim to be Catholic.
What is your message then to prominent Catholic politicians who do advance abortion, such as President Joe Biden and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi?
Yes, well, an important clarification here is that these politicians are truly Catholic in name only. By professing their belief in abortion, they are denouncing their Catholic faith and failing Catholics everywhere across our nation who they claim to represent. You know, it's sad that this question really even has to be asked right now, but it's an important one, and that is, can high-profile Catholics support abortion in good conscience? And the answer is always going to be a resounding no, because the Church always denounces abortion in any way, shape, or form. And it's important that these politicians know that they won't be able to hide behind their claims of being quote-unquote devout for much longer.
I want to get your take on something another prominent Catholic politician said recently. Last week, New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that Planned Parenthood saves lives. Take a listen.
Let's talk about how many lives Planned Parenthood has saved and how many babies have been born because of the prenatal care provided by Planned Parenthood. And if you don't believe it, and if you've never met a Planned Parenthood baby, I'm happy to let you know that I am one.
Prudence, what's your response to that, and what's the truth?
Well, let's just talk about some statistics that really break down the truth about Planned Parenthood. These are from their annual report that was published earlier this year, and our analysts at CLI broke this down. So their healthcare services, like breast exams and pap smears, are down by more than 60%. Prenatal services, down by more than 70%. And adoption referrals are down by more than 30%. However, their abortion numbers have increased. They performed more than 350,000 abortions last year alone. That's a 3% increase from 2019, and the most abortions that Planned Parenthood has ever performed in a given year in their history. So the truth of the matter is that Planned Parenthood is in the business of abortion, and it's really a shame that Representative Cortez is misleading people to believe that they are in the business of saving lives when really they want to destroy them.
Those numbers don't lie.
They don't.
Thank you for that clarity. Finally, Prudence, amid this discussion, how would you encourage Catholics and our viewers and pro-lifers to respond to pro-abortion policies from this administration? Is there a way for us to push back?
Absolutely, we can push back. As Catholics, it's our duty to mend society, and we can do that by speaking the truth in compassion and really convincing and helping people understand that abortion is not only the destruction of an innocent life in the womb, it deeply wounds every woman who undergoes the procedure. We need to be getting involved in our community in the pro-life groups that are available and around, such as Rachel's Vineyard or a pro-life pregnancy care center. And if Catholics aren't sure whether or not those groups exist in their area, a great place to start is their local parish. It's so important that we're speaking up and advocating against this status quo of abortion on demand. We need to be vocal about our church leaders and politicians who are claiming to be Catholic but aren't standing up for the truth and are advocating for abortion, which goes against everything that our faith teaches. We need to be vocal about their lack of authenticity on this issue.
Well, those are some great ways that Catholics can get involved and counter this culture of death. Prudence Robertson with the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.